The late Hubert Humphrey, who served as a U.S. Senator and a Vice President, once spoke of how a president and his administration ought to be judged. Quote, "The ultimate moral test of any government is the way that it treats three groups of its citizens. First, those in the dawn of life, our children. Second, those in the shadows of life, our needy, our sick, our handicapped. Third, those in the twilight of life, our elderly." By those standards, the party line vote that passed Trump's budget in the House in the early hours yesterday fails each threshold of a compassionate society. If you or your family make less than $50,000 a year, you lose in this budget. If you or your loved one are among the millions who rely on Medicaid, you lose again. If you rely on food stamps or your child counts on SNAP program to eat, you lost yesterday. The same goes for anyone who's still saddled with student debt, and the list of losers goes on. But have no fear. If your household did better than $500,000 a year, and especially if you're among the mega rich, under this budget, you make out like gangbusters. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office took a look at the bill and came away with a clear consensus. The gains for the wealthiest Americans under this plan come off the backs of low-income people. Of the more than $625 billion slated to be cut from Medicaid, it's forecast that nearly 8 million people will lose their health insurance and that work requirements would be implemented even for people in their 60s to be able to access food stamps, and would bar health care for children depending on their parents' immigration status. As a frame of reference, the elderly who will lose their health care, the disabled who will be forced to go without, and the children who will now go hungry could have been spared if Trump and his Republican conference had simply decided to not give an additional tax cut to the wealthiest 1%. That's the trade-off they calculated, and that's the choice and priorities they made at the end of the day. But I think one of the challenges we run into when we're not the population directly impacted is putting a human face on budgetary decisions. So this morning, I thought I'd share the dilemma now facing Claire Smith, as movingly described by her father Jamie, as related to the Huffington Post. Mr. Smith shared that his daughter, who is disabled, has complex medical needs including asthma, epilepsy, autism, and cardiac, pulmonary, and cognitive issues. He explained that not that many years ago, children like Claire would have been confined to an institution instead of at home with their families. The reason was that private insurance plans, like Jamie's, didn't cover many of the medical costs, let alone support disabled people. It's only because of access to Medicaid, he said, that Claire and countless other disabled children across this country have been able to grow up at home with their families, where they're wanted and loved. Medicare has helped pay for the bed that she needs to sleep safely in, the wheelchair she uses to get around, and the hearing aid she needs to hear others, and the assistive communication device so that she can communicate. Medicaid has given access to robust therapies and let Claire go to school, and in short, to not only be part of a community, but to also have dignity. Medicaid has allowed Claire's parents to both work to provide for their greater family because of the personal care that the program affords. Without this program, these lifelines would be out of reach for the Smith family. Now, this isn't just evidence of what a decent society does for its most vulnerable. Evidence shows it actually saves taxpayers money and has far better outcomes. Now, Republicans voted yesterday to remove that life-saving, life-enriching care, again, for a tax cut for the 1%. Now, what bothers the Smith family the most, beyond the obvious, is the cowardice involved. The text of Trump's big, beautiful bill was released late at night on Mother's Day, hoping it would go unnoticed. Then again, they debated the bill under the cover of darkness and passed it in the wee hours away from the glare of cameras. They know how devastating these cuts are, but decided tax cuts were more important. All in, the CBO estimates that the Senate approves Trump's budget, the result's going to be not just the 9 million I mentioned, but 14 million Americans all told losing health insurance. Along with the Claires of the country, the elderly, the chronically ill, the disabled, And children, they're the legislative losers here. Without sufficient Medicaid funding, hospitals across the country, particularly in rural areas, they're going to be forced to shut their doors. Now, this isn't as much as some on the right would lead you to believe about owning the libs, as if that wouldn't be bad enough. Not just blue states, but red states are equally effective, and conservatives will be particularly affected the farther we get away from metropolitan areas, which will be the hospitals most impacted. This bill was big, but it was not beautiful. It was cruel. And it makes America small in terms of what we now stand for.